Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another impromptu episode of the Boxing Asylum. Uh, I'm paying homage, of course, to the great Steve Wellington, who's weighing in here tonight as well with us. You got myself, rapping Rob Kelly. We have man like Desmond out of London, and we have the great, the GOAT, Steve Wellington, with us here as well as we preview a night of champions tomorrow in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, headlined by David Benavidez versus Anthony Yarde. Co-main event of Brian Norman Jr. versus Devin Haney. We got Bam Rodriguez on the card. We got Abdullah Mason and some reincarnation of Golovkin, Noakes. Well, let's I guess start at the bottom of the card. We got a lot of undefeated champions. A lot of O's are going to go tomorrow night. Um, Days, I'm going to come to you first. The chance to see Bam Rodriguez again. He's weighed in. Has he weighed in? Okay, I know you were playing a close eye and sorry, having a close eye over the weigh-ins. Has he? How does Bam Bam Rodriguez look on the scales this evening?
It's the one I didn't see on the scales, courtesy of
Brilliant.
seconds out. But courtesy of seconds out, I see most of them. I've got an opinion on most of them. But it's a funny thing you say that, Rob. You've got two world champions here, two potential Hall of Famers. I don't think they're going to have any problems on the scales. I think they've both come to fight, both come to win. And they're both really credible guys. I think we've got no problems here. We're going to have a brilliant fight between two very, very good fighters. Um, I like Bam. I like him against anyone. I think we've been so fortunate in the last 5 or 6 years that a new way revolution that picked up from the chocolate took the baton off a Chocolatito, and you've had the Donairs and the Nearies, and I just think Bam's a wonderful addition. And I think we're in for a great fight tomorrow night. If I'm being honest with you, Rob, I think it's a brilliant card. All credit to the guys that have put this on. And it's quite it's bizarre watching Eddie and Frank out there with all these guys promoting all these fighters. They truly are two of the best promoters in the world now, with all the cards in there stacked in their favour. And this is a great show, and I think this is one of the best fights of the night, and I'm really looking forward to it. I won't go too deep in who I think wins and how I think they win it, but I think you've got a really good one here. You've got two brilliant fighters, and it's a great fight.
Well, I would agree that this is the greatest promotion on the earth. And if there's anybody from Riyadh season listening into the pod, I think Turkey Al Sheikh is
Mhm.
probably the greatest thing that ever happened to
Yeah, yeah,
boxing.
yeah,
And
yeah.
a great bunch of lads all together. Steve, do you know much about the flyweight opponent of Bam Rodriguez, Viva Argentina, and all this? Have you seen Martinez in action much? What do you reckon his chances are tomorrow? Can he pose a threat to Bam Bam, or is it just going to be, or Bam rather, is it going to be another standard win for Martinez, and we just here to admire him? It's his world, and we're just living in it.
Well, first of all, Rodriguez is a fantastic fighter. I've cut the main weights out there for the screen, so everybody can sort of see what the weights are. Everybody made them comfortably. Shout out to everyone. Boxrec put this up, and it's got all the records of everybody as well. So that's pretty handy. But as for Rodriguez and his opponent, Rodriguez is an outstanding talent, and fair play to these guys for getting together. It's just a shame it's not a battle for undisputed. His opponent, Fernando Martinez. He's 34, so he is a bit on the older side. I do remember him actually coming along in 2022 in Las Vegas. He fought Jerwin Ancayas. The guys at home might remember Ancayas. I saw him live fighting against Jamie Conlon way back in 2017. Stopped him in the SSE
Friend of the
arena
pod,
for that. Friend of the pod, exactly. Another great bunch of lads. Good lad is Jamie. But for the IBF World Super Flyweight title. But he'd won that title originally off, I think it was, Ancayas. That's right. Ancayas had beaten Conlon. He was on a good run. He'd come over to Showtime. Everyone thought he would beat this kid Martinez, and Martinez put up the fight of his life. His dad was in his corner. He won by 118, 110 a couple of times, 117, 111. They had a rematch just to make sure it wasn't a fluke. Beat him again. Exactly the same kind of wide scores. 8 months later, and he was the new IBF Super Flyweight champion. I think he came of age, Martinez, which is a bit funny to say for a 34-year-old, with his two fights with Kazuto Ioka. I've seen both of the fights, both very good indeed. The first one was in July 2024. the WBA and IBF title were both on the line. And unfortunately, since then, I can't remember the exact dynamics, but he's lost that IBF title, which is now owned by a Mexican, which is why this is only a 3-belt unification rather than undisputed. But let's be honest, Rodriguez is probably... Rodriguez is the number one in the division. Whoever wins this fight is going to be the number one in the division. I can't even remember the guy who owns the IBF now, but these are the two main guys, basically. But back in 2024, Ioka and Martinez went at it, unification, really good fight. One judge gave every round to Martinez, 120.08. I thought it was a little bit closer than that. Ioka surprised me that night. They had an immediate rematch, which is the kicker here, back in May of this year, 2025. It was the same country back in Japan again, and it was a lot closer. Ioka really came on, and I can't remember if there's any knockdowns or not because my brain fails me, but 114, 113, 115, 112 indicates I think Ioka might have knocked him down, is why I'm saying that, and a 117, 110, really close fight. Ioka showed a lot of guts, a lot of bravery late on to keep on pitching, and Martinez kind of slowed down in both fights, and I'm getting to the point eventually. If that happens in this fight, you can just see Rob taking over in those later rounds, which is why I think he might... a points win would be the safe option, but Rodriguez, he has the bit between his teeth. And if Martinez comes to fight, which he will, this guy ain't going to back down. For the first 6, 7, 8 rounds, he's going to be right there pitching with Rodriguez. I think the difference will be made in that last third of the fight. Rodriguez takes over and likely maybe stops him around the 11th or 12th round. But this is a live opponent, and answer your question, Bob. No doubt about it.
Well, there's nothing wrong with coming of age at 34. I'm still trying to come of age at 47, so hopefully any day now. Bam Rodriguez, my personal thoughts on it, a special talent. Really interested in his background. He's with Robert Garcia. Robert Garcia, of course, we mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the pod, seemed to be he was like the second coming of Angelo Dundee or Costamado or whoever you name, Manny Stewart. He was going down as a Hall of Fame trainer, and then he seemed to be top liver once he lost a couple of fights. But at one stage, his stable had Brandon. It had he had his brother Mikey, of course. He had a slew of good fighters, and he seems to be having a bit of a resurgence at the moment. And Rodriguez is leading the charge. But I was listening to... I'm always kind of fascinated by hearing about the habits of elite level sports people. And Mikey Garcia, whose career, let's not get started on Mikey Garcia. I had such high hopes for him. But he talks about when Bam Rodriguez used to be around the gym as a kid, because, we're all adults and time, 10 years goes like 5 minutes these days for us. But it's not so long ago that Bam Rodriguez was just a school kid in the gym with Garcia. But, there's a common theme when you talk about elite sports people and the effort and the meticulous detail that they take in preparation. And apparently Rodriguez is just like a gym rat, loved being in the gym, stayed extra, stayed after his time was up, constantly watching, observing. And you can see he's got a natural boxing IQ that kind of can't be taught, that way. He's a special fighter. And it's interesting to hear you talk about him maybe breaking down the guy in the last third of the fight. I think that's kind of when... That's what separates the men from the boys. We hear this cliche all the time about championship rounds, but that's when great fighters do something different, or they step it up a little bit. Mikey Garcia was a bit like that too. So it's interesting to see how much he develops and grows under Robert Garcia. Pity for him, obviously, is that these big money fights are not typically in his weight division. But he's doing all he can in that division, and this is a nice showcase for him being on this kind of card. I think it's on at a nice time for our US listeners as well. So we won't spend too much, I don't expect it's going to be a foregone conclusion that Bam Rodriguez wins this, but we all expect him to come through with a kind of an emphatic performance here and show that there's levels between world champions, even at this level. So,
and sorry, Rob. Rob. They've just caught Martinez at the right time as well. He's sort of, I think, right. I mean, Steve might correct me. I think Martinez is sort of 34, 35. Bam's coming into sort of mid to late 20s. He's peaking out. And Bam's that horrible combination of someone that he doesn't mind standing with you. He enjoys being in the mixer. He sets traps. He's got good feet. He can press. We'll talk a bit more about that pressing when we talk about Benavidez. Yeah, he puts you where he wants you. And he's heavy-handed with both hands. And he takes one to give one, knowing he's got so much confidence in the one that he gives. He's that horrible combination. I think he'll force Martinez to fight a fight that he doesn't really want to fight. And that will be his downfall. And I think it'll be a late stoppage from Bam. We love Bam on this pod. He's a true, like a fighter's fighter. I don't see any flaws in him at this weight. I mean, when he goes up and if he gets to the new ways or gets around that territory, sometimes the weight catches these kids out. But where he is now, I think he's unstoppable. And Martinez is a good fighter.
You shouldn't be paying 13-2. Martinez is better than that. I very much agree with what Steve said. I think this fight will probably be even after 8 rounds, and then Bam probably is able to steer it on home, be it by decision or by a stoppage. The over/under is at 9.5 on this one, so you getting a little extra value if you want to take it going the distance. But you might, Martinez's age notwithstanding, that's low ring miles on this guy. I think we're just now probably getting around to his 20th fight of his career. And 4 of his fights have been against the same 2 people, and Cajas and Ioka. But it's going to be an interesting fight. And what I can't decide actually is, because Martinez likes to operate in roughly the same kind of real estate that Bam does. He's not heavy-handed, but he's very active with his hands. He has every punch in the book. He throws a good hook. He throws a good uppercut. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if Bam eats him alive at that real estate, or if he can hold his ground at least through the first 2/3 of the fight. But I very much agree with what Steve said. But don't sleep on Martinez at 13-2.
Do you think there's a bit of value
fighter
there, Matty, in the if you're spreading your bets there at 13-2 to stick a fiver on Martinez to bring the house down? There's going to be an upset somewhere along the way. Is this the one where the real value is?
There's three bets on this fight that I would consider if I was looking to put a bet on it. One is a Bam to win rounds 10-12 at just a little bit less than 4-1. I think that's a good number. I think that there's good value on potentially Martinez at 13-2 again. But if you're really thinking about that, we know the way these things work. And if you're the underdog, you're going to need 8 to get 7. So the draw, I haven't looked at what the draw is, but I bet it's better than 15-1. I think the draw would look pretty tasty on this one. But it's, again, if I was going to say, like, obviously with the odds, the most likely of those outcomes is Bam in 10-12. And that's probably what I think is most likely outcome in the fight. But do not sleep on Martinez.
But what could happen here as well, guys, is you could have a really good in-play bet, because I think Martinez will look good.
That's how you get your Bam value. That's how you get your Bam value.
That's how you get your Bam value. So I think up to rounds 5, I think Martinez will be perhaps nicking rounds, but I think he'll be losing the fight. Much like Lennox and Vitali 20-odd years ago. Vitali was winning rounds, but he was losing the fight, and Lennox was always going to get to him. And I think Bam will Bam will give rounds up, knowing I'm setting traps for this guy and I'm taking him to places that he can't sustain. So I think it's the last 4 rounds that are really crucial. But I think the in-play bet, you'll get a lot of value on Bam.
Quickly on Bam, just before we move to the other fights, is there scope for Bam to move up a weight and maybe make and if there was, who would he potentially have a super fight with? Where is the value in terms of Bam's career, in terms of that real big fight that he's looking for?
If Nakatani wasn't moving up, that's the fight. But unfortunately, with Nakatani moving up to 122, that effectively clears out and the division again. So maybe you're talking about the winner of Tenshin Nasukawa and the less talented Inoue brother. As he steps up, but it's really Martinez is outside of getting into Nakatani at 118, which is a real toss-up fight for me. Martinez is about as good of a matchup as you're going to find for Bam at 115 or below.
Yeah, there's not much of bantamweight, is there, at the moment, Matty?
Yeah, and it's not that these guys are so bad; it's that Bam is so good. He's just that fucking much better than anyone else, really.
I like Tenshin. I think he's really improved, but I mean, there's no world where he beats Bam Rodriguez. You know what I mean? Like it's night and day.
Yeah.
I have doubts about anyone who cried in the ring from getting punched around. I don't know.
I'll tell you what. Since then, Matty, I thought he was a joke, man. I actually really like him. He's an exciting fighter.
A little bit stiff upper body, little bit chin up in the air, but he's decent. That kickboxing background is solid, and he throws
to get to world level. Yeah, he's done well.
What's done bantamweight? What's wiped bantamweight out is that perhaps you'd have looked at the Estrada fight, but Bam was so conclusive in that Estrada fight. Then there's nothing at bantamweight that you could think, well, this is a big fight for Bam.
Chocolatito.
Yeah, correct.
There's nothing waiting for him, is there?
There's nothing waiting for him. Correct, Steve. That's the way to put it. There's nothing at bantamweight waiting, and we're all looking at super bantam because we know what's there. So maybe Bam's got to have a couple at bantam, nick a title, and go up, and that'd be, that would be big.
Maybe it's the case then we just admire Bam why we still have him a lot like the recently retired Gennady Golovkin, which is segueing me to the next fight that we're going to cover on this card. At 135 pounds, we've got Abdullah Mason, who we've all been very high here on the pod, against the Kent Golovkin, Sam Noakes, the Kazakhstani.
Welling's curse.
Is this where actually we go to Wellington first on this. Steve, you're high on Abdullah Mason. I'm high on Abdullah Mason. We're all high on life. He hasn't been past 6 rounds. Can Sam Noakes present a banana skin here for Abdullah Mason for this vacant world title fight, or is it going to be routine?
I don't think it's going to be routine, to be honest. My initial instinct when I was looking at this fight was, you know what? It might actually go the distance. 2 big punchers, not really sure about each other. It could happen, but I think after refreshing my mind, I've watched the footage, I had to look at a few notes, and I don't give Noakes much of a chance, to be honest with you. Not that I'm saying Abdullah Mason is already crowned as the second coming. I like a lot of what I see. He's shown his flaws. He's not the finished article, but that hand speed, I think, and the power and the ability to just explode and get to the target quickly is going to be the downfall for Noakes. Because if you watch Noakes, I mean, he's obviously going to be fitter and sharper than he was in that sort of last tick-over fight. And he is a good fighter, Noakes. He comes forward, his hands are very high. He can move the head a little bit, but it's on the line a lot, as the Americans tend to say. I just don't think he has that footwork and explosivity to get inside and do damage to Mason before Mason does damage to him. Mason's hands are so fast comparatively, and those scything uppercuts are just going to be there. I think that Noakes' face is just going to start to look like a butcher's slab after a few rounds, and that'll be the problem. It'll be the old British features. They'll be marking up, maybe a cut. The faces will be swelling, and they'll just do the work on him. As for that, I do think an interesting side point is, well, there's 2 interesting side points. First of all, the talk of when Shakur Stevenson sparred Noakes in London, whenever he came over, and he said Noakes does punch very, very hard. That was an endorsement that makes this a little bit more interesting, and maybe will make Mason a little bit more reluctant to exchange, as you would think. And the second thing is obviously that knockdown for Mason. There were 2 knockdowns against your guy Vasquez. The only difference between that is I think he was caught out by the explosivity, ironically, of Vasquez. I don't think Noakes has the ability in his locker to do something so unpredictable, if you know what I mean. That guy was a bit of a journeyman. He could punch, but he caught Abdullah Mason napping, really, with fast shots that he didn't see coming. I just think that Noakes is a little bit too predictable. And then you'll be there in front of Mason, and he won't be able to catch him with those same kind of shots. But he's physically strong. If you can push him against the ropes, get him past 6 rounds, grind him down, that punching power Stevenson talked about, you just never know. And I'm not writing Noakes off. He seems like a nice kid. That took loads of fans over there, and he was buzzing on the scales today, really enjoying himself. And why not? This is his big chance. Yeah. Fair play to him, man. I would say, Rob, around the 9th round, I think around the 9th or 10th round, things are going to start to get ugly. If he went the distance, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think Mason's just going to bust him up.
Good shout. The great Steve Wellington is quoting the great Joe Joyce. And we're not talking about the juggernaut there. He's leaving fellas' faces like a butcher's block. There's Noakes' nickname is the Kent Golovkin. I haven't been to Kent too much. Is there many similarities between Kent and Kazakhstan? Can you tell me?
No, they call Kent the Garden of England. nothing like Kazakhstan, but Noakes can fight. Maybe Noakes could be sort of Kazakh-ish. He can punch, he can fight. I agree with Steve. He was really enjoying the weigh in. He looked good on the scales. He's definitely showing us that he's not overawed by this event, and it's a big event, and he's got a big task ahead of him. I just think that southpaw style of Abdullah, the fact that he knows how to step across, and whip them uppercuts in, throw them southpaw left hands over the top. I think what'll happen is Sam will fancy it and he'll believe in himself. But come round 3 or 4, I think he'll be stung a few times and he'll know I have to go into a bit of a shell to look after myself. And I think that'd be his undoing. But I think that's probably better than sort of pressing Mason, who's got really good feet and fast hands and can punch. Look, we're really high on Abdullah Mason on this pod, and we have been for a long time. He's a teenager turned over. We've been watching him from the start, and I'm not putting Sam down. This is a hard fight for Sam. I just think this one will be a little bit about levels, and I'm not suggesting that Americans are better than us just because they're American. We've been watching Abdullah from the start. He's a good kid. He's a really good kid, and I'm not saying Sam isn't, but Abdullah seems to be that kid that's going straight to the top. He's got a good family around him. He comes from a really good state. They know their boxing. He comes from a really good school. I think Sam's got it all to do. It's not perhaps quite Michael Jennings, Miguel Cotto, but this could be a little bit Leon Walsh, Javante Davis. We could see levels tomorrow night. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think Abdullah will knock Sam into a shell, and that will probably be the start of it. And I'm expecting Sam to sort of get caught out in the second half of the fight, maybe the last 4 rounds, because I just think Abdullah's feet are so good. That southpaw stance, them quick hands, he can punch, and I think he'll grow in confidence in there. And I hate to say that because Sam's done nothing wrong in his pro career. He's a good kid. But this is a really tough challenge. But hopefully, it's one that Sam can take a lot from, win or lose. He can take a lot from it.
Well, hopefully, seeing as he's brought a lot of fans there and he's buzzing, he's
Yeah.
enjoying the atmosphere. The
He
world
fancies it. He's going for it. Yeah,
and that's good. Matty, last week when I was looking at this, I would have thought Abdullah was kind of odds-on favourite. But I'm interested to get the viewpoint from one of my favourite Italian Americans on how this goes, because I don't think there's when you look at it, I don't think there's much difference. I know Abdullah's been fighting in the States. I don't really think there's that much difference in the level of opponent that both of them have fought thus far. They've got practically identical records. Is this a case where both of them bring the best out in each other and we actually see a fucking humdinger of a fight, or is there going to be levels between Mason and Noakes on the night?
It might be, and I guess that would be like it would. And it's tough to say. Is that going to be because we overrated Mason or we underrated Noakes? That's what that would come down to, and I don't know which way I would lean on that. I think the fact that they are both young fighters with limited experience, and they're kind of in their own way their own first test against each other is why this fight is closer. But Noakes is about a 5-2, and I just don't see him in this fight as much as I see Martinez in with Bam. But I'm not an odds maker, so maybe I got this wrong. But Abdullah Mason is paying right around even money for a stoppage victory, and I got to tell you that's what I like. If everything we've seen from Mason continues on this trajectory, he's going to be a bit too much. He's going to chew Noakes up down the middle, make him squeeze his guard in tighter, and probably come around the ear with a hook and finish it off, something like that. He's just so fucking quick. But yeah, I like that number of almost even money for Mason by stoppage or disqualification.
Good shout. Yeah, I like Mason. I don't know enough about Noakes, but I know from having seen Mason already come through adversity, he has that little bit of dog in him that I like to see. That it feels like if you hurt him or you hit him or you catch him, you're waking him up. and you're almost bringing an extra level of dog out in him. Shades of Bud Crawford, not shades of Ali. Um,
You've got to be in
it's
front of Noakes, I think, Rob, from what I've noticed. That's what I said about the footwork and getting from A
not
to
going to be
B
seek and
quickly.
destroy. Like,
Yeah, you've got to be in front of him. And like guys, I think it was Luis Silvestre, he fought, they were hanging around on the ropes. Mendy was right in front of him for the 12 rounds. I just think he'll struggle if there's a guy giving him a lot of lateral movement and hand speed and something to worry about coming in. There's just that athletic quality, just too big of a gap for me.
yeah, no, that sounds like a fair assessment from the panel so far on the fights that we've covered so far. So far we've had a look at Bam Rodriguez and Martinez, and we've had a look at Abdullah Mason, highly touted Abdullah Mason versus the Kent Golovkin. I can't get over that fucking nickname. Hopefully that's just another's meme that's made it my way, and they're not really hedging their bets on that one. Like,
Oh no, I think they are.
we could we could surely come up with something a little bit more snappy, like just fucking who's this promoter? Eddie fucking Frank, I'm here, baby. Just fucking shoot me a DM.
Frank,
Let me
yeah.
see what I can come up with. Like, fucking hell, do me a favor, Frank. The Kent
That's a
Golovkin.
Dev Sarni, isn't
Hell.
it? That he's come up with that. That's Dev. That is, I bet you.
Dev, baby, friend of the pod. Come on, for fuck's sake, the Kent Golovkin. We've already seen the Yarde Golovkin. We know which way that went. Like, fucking hell. But Steve, stay with me briefly because I know that you may have to get out of here fairly shortly. So I'm really interested to find out
Yeah.
your thoughts on my favorite fight on this card, Brian Norman Jr. versus Devin Debo Haney. He's no longer the dream Haney. He's a man to be reckoned with at 147. He's got diamond encrusted teeth. His dad's up looking for a wrestle at the press conference. He's jumping around in a weigh-in. A lot of us are armchair Eddie Futches, none more so than us on this pod. Is there anything to read into the body language of the two of these at the face-off? Has Norman gotten his head? Is Norman going to get to him with the punch? Is he going to stand him on his head like Ryan Garcia? What the fuck happens in this fight?
Yeah, about the body language, I'm not sure because I know there's an old saying, isn't it, that we kind of project our own thoughts onto the fighters, and I don't go on Twitter not very often these days, but I did have a little look below the visual of Norman standing there looking at Haney and Haney doing the bobbing back and sides. I think that was at the press conference the other night or something that footage came from, and so a lot of people were saying, "Oh, Norman's nervous," and then other people were going, What are you smoking? It's Haney who's nervous. So, I mean, who's nervous? I don't think either of them are nervous, to be honest. Maybe Norman, because he hasn't been on this stage before. Haney has got that big fight experience, but I don't see either of them as being nervous. I think once they get in that ring, that'll not be an issue. And guys behaving...
Yeah. Sorry, I think the jumping up and down thing from Haney is a reference to an ongoing theme between the two of them, where the Norman camp have been calling Haney flat-footed, and Bill Haney has been trying to counter it. Right. So I think that's what that was all about. But I don't know. Again, armchair psychology 101. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead, dude.
No, not at all. Not at all. That's a good clarification. I wasn't sure about that, to be honest. But I mean, imagine having Devin Haney, Bill Haney, Rick Reno, His Excellency, Eddie Hearn, all in one place, man. I don't know. I think we need
Where's
Andy
Bitcoin Rodney when you need him?
Yeah, exactly. Firebombing or something. But oh man, I just can't warm to Haney at all. I'd love to see Brian Norman get the job done. I just know in boxing as we do, the boxing gods will sort of slap us across the face and have Devin stinking the place out over 12 rounds, running around the place. I'm going to say the crowd will be booing, but I don't think they will be. The crowd will be completely disinterested, not even watching
ring
at all.
Size? I'm very curious what the ring size is.
That's a good point. That is a good point, actually. Don't know. Not sure about that.
I
do think, though...
It's an 18. I would love to see it in 18.
Haney, you'd like to think, even though he's not the champion, he calls the shots, doesn't he? And he's earning a lot of money, if truth be told, about this contract that he's on. I mean, why on earth they'd pay him the tens of millions of dollars? I do not know, because I don't want to watch him, and I don't know anybody else who does. I think he's still carrying the lasting effects of the Ryan Garcia loss. That performance against Jose Ramirez, as I said on Sunday, was so safety first. I think he's afraid to get hit clean. I think Norman's a puncher, just needs to be able to drag him into the fight. I'd love to see him pull it off. Hopefully, he can make things ugly, channel that sort of aggression that he's got, and catch Haney. Because if he catches Haney, things could get very interesting, because he can clearly punch, and Haney clearly doesn't take a punch. But if I have to play things safe, Haney's the known entity at this level. We've seen him before. He's beaten the better guys. He's championship experienced on this kind of stage, and I think it would be the safe bet to pick him to win the fight on points. But I'd love to see Brian Norman sort of erase him and get the job done there, Rob.
They're dead even with the books now, Rob. They're minus 110 both of them. So just a smidge less than even money as far as DraftKings goes.
Well, I think a
Um,
lot of the money is down in on US Twitter based on this, and Norman is now the people's champion. So just to recap briefly on Steve's opinion on this, Wellington is not a Haney-ack, and he's predicting that Haney's going to win off the stick, and the crowd are going to go mild. Um,
Yeah.
Matty, while you're with me there and we're talking betting odds, Brian Norman Jr. has used this promotion to elevate himself into the psyche of the casual boxing fan, and he's done a fantastic job. I think he's been flawless throughout the entire promotion, from his disparaging remarks about Devin Haney's fashion sense, calling him out in the 1-to-1 about his Diet Floyd bullshit. To I think he sat down with somebody there recently for Vox Pops in the build up to this fight, and he talked about that knockout of the year that he had against the kid in Japan. And he told a story that I thought was fascinating. He was like, "You're talking. Everybody sees the punch, but they don't see the setup." He's like, "What did I do the day before at the weigh-in? I put my hand up and said I'm number one. The Japanese guy put his hand up and said, number one. He said, I put my hand up in the air and flexed my muscles. He put his hand up in the air and flexed his muscles. He said, so I threw a jab to the body. He went to throw a jab to the body. And when he went to throw his jab to the body, boom, left hook across the chops. So that kind of stuff is warming up to people. He's definitely an interesting character. Can he walk the walk to go with the talk that he's brought to this promotion, do you think?
I think what's interesting about Norman is he has less to prove than Haney because he's still kind of unknown. He has his W's, but he doesn't like have like something he's trying to live down or anything like that. He might be trying to prove he belongs, but he's not trying to erase old demons or anything like that. And I think if there's anything that makes this fight play into his hands and away from Haney's, it's Bill Haney, because Bill Haney is so reactive to the things that people say. So he's thinking he's going to have Devin there to prove something. He's going to try to make some adjustment, I think, and it's just going to make Devin think too much. And I think that Norman will take advantage of that. Bill is just he's got too much of that like kind of street ego shit going on. He's got to he can't let anybody punk him, right? And I think that's gonna bite Devin in the ass. And I think if he wasn't the guy in charge, maybe it would be a different story. But I think considering Haney, his recent performances, how tentative he is, and the fact that Norman has a really solid left hook, which is proven to be very detrimental to Haney, especially obviously in that Ryan Garcia fight. I gotta lean towards Norman on this one.
Go on, Matty.
I think there's going to be mistakes made by Haney, and I think Norman's going to capitalize. But the odds have moved towards Haney. Norman was a bit more of a favorite, and they've moved towards Haney a bit. So it's worth taking into consideration.
Well, that's really interesting, Maddie. Actually, that you bring up Bill, because Des, I think we're right here. I think a lot of the hate towards the Haneyacks hinges on the fact that the Haneys come as a package deal. You can't have Devon without having Bill's fucking mouth in the background yapping away. Now, he is a former pimp from Oakland, and he may have picked up some certain skills in his previous employment that he's bringing to his current employment as uh, head trainer and promoter, co-promoter of Devin Haney, in the fact that he's a great salesman. He gives a great sales pitch. He was at the press conference talking about Devin Haney as if he's fucking Alexander the Great after conquering the seven seas by going to Australia and beating up George Kambosos twice. And suffering what most of us thought was a loss to Lomachenko, where he got the nod on the cards, and stood on his head by Ryan Garcia and basically fought scared against Ramirez. That's easy for me to say in a 47 with a fucking bear gut, calling fellas scared when they're in the ring fighting. But
Yeah,
it's
but you retired undefeated, Rob.
exactly. And I'm still going, baby. Um, but no, I think Haney Bill Haney rather is an unbearable grifter, and anybody with a fucking anybody that doesn't suffer bullshit can kind of see through his shit. But the- like if Devin Haney was without Bill Haney, would maybe people wouldn't fucking dislike him as much. I think Bill Haney being the mouthpiece piece for the Haney setup. Um, makes people naturally root against him. And stay with me, Des, because I'm going somewhere with this. But if we talk about especially on the pod over the last couple of months, where the talent pool and the depth of the talent pool is so low, we're so devoid of anything exciting. It's almost like there's no justice in the world that we finally get Brian Norman Jr. On a big promotion like this, and he's saying all the right things and he's doing all the right things and he has an exciting style, and now we have to put him in a situation where it's almost a no win for him. Can he do it here? Can he get the Haneys out of here and bring some fresh lifeblood back to the sport and be the face of 147 going forward?
Well, you make some really good points here, Rob, and that's a great assessment of pretty much where the 147 division is right now, and the two big players. And I think I watched Brian Norman a couple of fights ago against Derek Chavez, and on the same card I saw Emilio Vargas, Bruce Carrington, and Brian Norman, and I thought those three were standout fighters that are destined for great things. And I looked at Brian Norman that night. I listened to the way he spoke. I listened to his father post-fight, and I thought, this is a kid that's going to the top. Devin Haney's a hard fighter. Devin Haney's a talent, and it's only if we roll the clocks back 18 months, Devin Haney was a top 10 pound for pound fighter, and probably someone that we earmarked for going straight to the top and being a top 3 pound for pound boxer. With regards to his dad, I always give respect to dads in boxing, particularly because they get laughed at by the mainstream. And there's a lot of guys in boxing that have sort of studied the textbook and have been through all the courses, done it another way round, and they can't look down on the dads. But these dads have got their kids there for a reason, whether it's T.O.'s dad, Danny Garcia's dad, Enzo, whether it's Brendan Ingle, whether it's Bill Haney, whether it's Floyd Sr., these dads have got something. And you've only got to go back to that fight when Bud Crawford was sort of neck and neck with Sean Porter going into the championship rounds. And Bomac, I know he's not his dad, but they speak the same language, and he knew what to say to his kid. And there's a lot to be said for a dad knowing his son, a dad getting him there. And something we don't speak about with Bill Haney is that when Devon was in his teenage years, his formative years, when he was in that transition of amateur to pro, Bill took him to the Mayweather gym and said to Floyd Sr., can you have my son for the next 5 years? Because you can teach him things I can't. You have to respect that. I know we don't often talk about Bill in glowing terms, but that is to be respected. And I think Bill is a lot better probably at training Devon and understands Devon than what we give him credit for. Much like the guys I previously mentioned. So I think Bill was all them things you said, but I think also at the heart of it, he understands his son. I think they have a great connection, and he's got his son to a place that very few fighters will ever go to. The money he's earned, the fights he's won, the titles he's won. I think Devon's been a very good fighter. Touching back on what I said, only 18 months ago, he was a top 10 pound for pounder on this pod, and we know our boxing. But I think things have happened. I think Devon's trajectory is tilted down. I think guys like Brian Norman have come through. Boots has moved on, and I think the 147 division is wide open. I'm in agreement with Matty on this one. I think Brian Norman's geared up to win this one. I like everything about Brian Norman. I like the work he does. I like the way he's come through. I think he's got a brilliant left hook. I think he's got fantastic motor skills. I think he's got that sort of military mindset where he'll walk Devon down, and he'll be mentally strong and physically strong. He'll put his hands together well. I think he'll throw shots. He's prepared to stand in the mixer. And I'm not quite sure at this stage in his career, Devin Haney is the man to deal with a Brian Norman. I think this is a really hard fight for Devin Haney because Brian Norman is a live one. He's a really good fighter. I think I don't know if Steve or Matty can confirm. I think Brian Norman's dad is heavily involved in Brian's career as well.
He is.
I'm not.
He is.
Yeah,
His
he was a
dad,
fighter himself. I remember him.
Yeah, this is
real
bad for
journeyman
Devon.
type though. Real journeyman
Yeah,
type.
but they're the
Yeah, he
ones that
was.
learn
He
the
was.
most. But they're the ones that learn the most, and I think this is a really
Especially
hard
if they were
fight for Devon.
sparring partners, right? Right, Des?
Honestly,
If they had a chance
yeah,
to bounce a bunch of
yeah,
gyms, put in work for a lot of different
yeah,
guys, that's a hell of a way to learn your craft as a
and
trainer. That's why I don't doubt what Malik Scott does.
Yeah, and
and
fill into the weight as well, Des. He's filled
yeah,
nicely into the weight. He's only
yeah,
young. He's a young guy, but he's a big, he's a big welterweight. He's been at the weight a lot
yeah.
longer than Haney.
And yeah, I agree with both of the lads, and I think this is a hard fight for Devon, and I think at this place in Devon, at this place at time in Devon's career, I think Devon might be a little bit too erratic, a little bit maybe if you get
A
into
little
that round
too
four,
unsure of himself.
yeah, and sure there might be a bit of a crack in Devon's mentality if you go into round 5 and 6 and Norman's gunning for him, looking for him, and pressing him. And I think Devon's thinking, well, do you know what? I ain't got the upper hand in this one. Brian Norman's not going away. He's come to win, and I've been watching this one all week because it has been a really good card, and it's something I needed from boxing. This card, and I've liked everything I've seen in Brian Norman. He looks staunch, as we used to say. And it's going to be a hard fight for both kids. But I think Brian's got it all to gain. And I think Devon's got it all to lose. And if their mindsets are not right, I think Devon could really fold tomorrow and get beat. And I think in the last 4 or 5 rounds, if it goes that long, I think it will. I think Devon might be in a little bit of damage limitation, not quite survival, but damage limitation mode. And I think Brian will grow in confidence as this fight goes. I just think he's all wrong for Devon Haney this one.
Yeah, good shout. I mean, your prediction here is not too far away from my own prediction. Well, I'm torn on my prediction, so I'm going to come back to it. But I was listening to Showtime Sean Porter, and I really enjoy listening to his breakdowns of fights. I enjoyed him a lot more than I enjoyed watching him fighting. Be honest with you, I hated his fucking style, and absolutely hot, an eyesore, a horrific fucking WrestleManiac.
He
But
boxes like people who can't drum. It's just like there's
yeah,
no time, there's no tempo or consistent rhythm. It's just like we're going to fucking 6/8 here, boys. Boom. What?
It's like the great jazz musicians. You have to listen out for the notes that they're not playing, as you have to watch the punches that he wasn't throwing. Sean Porter.
Here though,
Um,
Rob, have you never seen his prediction of Crawford Spence that he done on the Boxing News? Oh, it was amazing. Like he was like, if it gets to the 6th, then this, and the 8th, and the end. By the 10th round, I'll definitely be able to tell you who's going to win the fight.
yeah. So he's done something. He's done something similar in his prediction, but basically he's intimated that he thinks that Devin Haney might be gun shy, and that by the last third of the fight, that Norman
Yeah,
might take over.
yeah.
I'm not so
Interesting.
sure, guys. Right? There's a piece of me that feels like Brian Norman Jr. will get the job done. And if there's any justice, this guy makes a great account of himself, and we see him again because listening to him, even some of the patter in the fucking head to head where he's like, "I might touch you, and I might touch you in the jaw, and your arm might break." He's like, I might touch you in the jaw, your whole meniscus to go." He's a
Mike
really,
Tyson shit.
yeah, he's just fucking old school. He has a bit about him. He has something that, and if there's any justice, you'd like to see this guy as a champion, and see him again, like in other big fights. Because I don't think there'd be any of the typical delays that you had with. I would put Haney in the character or some of the prima donnas of the division, like the Garcias, the him, the Stevensons, the Davis, where they're all fucking holding each other up, and none of them. I don't think you get that with Norman Jr. I think he'd be like, "Yeah, sign the fucking contract, put me in. Who do you want me?" He's a bit like Lamont Roach in that respect, where he'll fucking probably have gloves, will travel.
Yeah.
I think Haney looks very big at 147, and I wouldn't be surprised if Norman's feet are a little bit stuck in the mud and Haney actually knocks him out, with the benefit of some enhancements that we'll never find out about. We're talking about, and this is, the cynic in me coming out here, but just seeing how this might roll out. Norman's been brought here for a reason. A lot of the time he gets brought in as an opponent. There's 36 milli down on Devin Haney. I can't see them matchmaking is everything, and I can't see them putting him in with somebody who could potentially beat him. Now, having said that, I do think, off the evidence of his last fight, that being gun shy against a guy like Brian Norman is the worst fucking position you could be in, because at some stage you're going to have to engage. I just haven't seen the feet from Norman to know that if Haney decides to get on the stick and get on his bike, that he couldn't actually get close to him and then maybe get frustrated and stop down the line. Have we any other callers that joined us since, by the way? Because I can't see anybody else that's joined.
No, I don't
Justin's
see
not here
anybody
or
else
anything.
on the call.
No.
But you make a good point, Robert. I agree with you on that. I think if Haney's allowed to get into a rhythm, he'll be a hard man to beat. And he is tough, like, for all I shit on him. Like, he took a lot of shots against Garcia and he kept getting
Yeah.
back up, like.
Say, and like you said, he got up against Garcia when he was Golovkin bamboozled him and box circles around him, I thought, but never in danger of stopping him. Um, not a gun shy, a shot. Jorge Linares, who was one of my favourites, nearly knocked him out on the way back to the ring, but he didn't knock him out. That's the thing, he didn't fucking. So I don't know
Yeah.
if Norman has
Found a
that.
way. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if Norman has that one punch KO power to switch the lights out on Devin Haney. And I'm gonna go final prediction. I'm gonna go Haney via decision, but I really want Norman to win. And I'm invested in the Norman story, and hopefully this is not the end of Storm and Norman. Um,
Haney just doesn't have that good of feet though, Rob. Like, yeah, he stayed away from Ramirez, but I don't know how much Ramirez is left, and none of that was pretty.
I
Like, I
don't
don't
think
know
he
if he's
has
going to get
bad
away with
feet
it.
either, though. Do you know that way? We spoke
No,
about
he's
this
in the
before.
fight. Yeah.
I don't think he's. I don't think he does anything brilliant, but I don't think he does anything bad either. Do you know that way? Like it's like I don't think like, he has any clear and
Was he
obvious
just
like.
getting through the Ramirez fight, do you think? Can we take a lot out of that? Because remember the Garcia fight was supposed to be signed, sealed and delivered, wasn't it? All he had to do was get through Ramirez. Garcia had to get through Rolly Romero, and the two of them were going to have a big fight. You wonder how much that mentality. He could be gun shy, he could be fragile, or he could have just been thinking, if I could just get past these 10 rounds or 12 rounds and get out of here. I don't know.
I think
That's the
he's in the
common
fight.
consensus, isn't it? That he's gone shy, but I'm not so sure. I'm really not so sure that I think that Norman is the guy that's going to be able to do it to him. Now, hopefully, I am wrong because like I said, I think there's for us
Same.
for
Yeah,
for the
same.
type of guys that love boxing the way we love it. Norman gives us more than Haney gives us, but you know, not to say that we can't have one or the other. There's four fucking belts in each division. Let's have
Well,
them all
and
fight each other and see.
Rob, Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios look signed for February
Yep.
21st, I think it is. And I don't want to see Garcia and Haney again, honestly. I'd rather see something new. I'd rather see.
No, we didn't
I'd
want to see
rather.
really Garcia and Haney versus the first. Haney seemed to be the one that was going to step up and fight him, right? We wanted to see Garcia versus fucking Shakur Stevenson or one of them fight each other. It's not
Yeah.
Davis fights Stevenson, but it just didn't materialize.
Lad,
So
sorry to kill the flow. I'm going to hook out of here. Thanks for
no
having me
worries,
on. I do
dude. We've only about
appreciate
10 minutes
it.
God
left
bless,
anyway.
Steve.
Nice to meet you,
No
Take
Steve.
care,
problems.
mate.
Thanks, lads. Cheers. Bye, bye, mate.
Brilliant. So we were going to go up to the hour on this. We might go slightly over. I got my favorite Italian American and my favorite Londoner Days on the line still with me. If anybody else wants to jump on, someone might throw that StreamYard in the chat if they want to. We can bring in some of the listeners and get a quick prediction from them. If anybody fancies it, feel free.
Yeah, all
The
welcome.
podcast belongs to you guys as much as it does to us, so feel free to jump in and give your opinion. Happy to have you guys on. So the main event, actually, do you know what? For me, the main event feels like it's Haney-Norman. I'm not as interested in the main event as I am in that fight in the co-main, but seeing as it is the main event, David Benavidez, the dominant 168 fighter, going up to 75 to face Anthony Yarde, who has had a couple of cracks at world titles. Definitely a big puncher, one of Frank's babies. Not many people giving him a chance against David Benavidez. Most people fancy him to drown in the desert of Saudi Arabia. Once Benavidez starts to get into a rhythm, starts to let those fast hands and combinations go, you could see him. We haven't seen any evidence to say that Anthony Yarde can deal with a David Benavidez yet, but as is the lifelong story of boxing, one punch can change everything, and Anthony Yarde definitely has that one punch. Has he got it all to put it together on the night and land that punch on Benavidez? That's a different prospect. Days, what do you see when you see? First of all, give me your thoughts on the career of Anthony Yarde so far, and then give me your thoughts on the matchup tomorrow night.
I think Anthony Yarde has had a wonderful career in isolation. If you step back, look at this kid and say, this is a kid that never had particularly any amateurs. He never come into the pros with a big reputation. He had a very, very slow burn. I think he spent most of his career on, propping up them Box Nation shows when Frank needed kids. And I don't think Anthony Yarde had anywhere to go. And Frank was quite happy to put him on. And I think he picked up a lot of wins. I don't think he learnt much other than how to be a pro, how to prepare, how to get his weight right. I think Anthony Yarde's always flattered to deceive. I think he looks $1 million. I think he's a good talker. Him and Tundi, whether you like it or not, they've got something. There's a chemistry there. There's a charisma between the two of them. And I like that. I'd rather that than not. I'd rather that in boxing than not in boxing. I think Tundi's a divisive character, an emotive character. I think he works. I think because of Tundi, whether he means it or not, we've all grown to really like Anthony Yarde because we're not too keen on the trainer. But we can't fault Anthony Yarde. He says the right things, and I think he's quite a likable guy. But his career's a little bit flat. I mean, his best win is 2-1 against Lyndon Arthur, and I think that should be better. But perhaps in this era where we finance rules and marketing and promotion trumps talent, I think Anthony Yarde would argue, well, look, this is what I've earned and this is where I've been, and I've fought 2 Hall of Famers, and I had a good fight with Benavidez, Beterbiev, fight of the year, and I went to Russia to fight Kovalev. Yeah, all that's true. So I think with Anthony Yarde, you've got to look at either is the cup half full or half empty, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people that say no, it's half full. He squeezed as much juice out of it as he can out of his career. But I think there's been a lot of not stagnation and not necessarily inactivity. I think he's fought about 8 times in the last 5 years. But there's a little bit of you've not been overly active against the right quality of fighter. And you seem to bounce from kids that wouldn't win an area belt to kids that are going to go into the Hall of Fame first ballot. And we don't get in-betweens with Yarde. We've never seen him fight more than 2 of his domestic counterparts. And I think he felt comfortable with a Lyndon Arthur because Lyndon's like a domestic version of Bivol. They never come out of a comfort zone. They box to orders. It's very slow paced. And I think Yarde found himself quite comfortable in that. And I'd like to have seen Yarde over the years fight a Craig Richards or a Willie Hutchinson or a Callum Smith or a Buatsi, because I think it would have done really a lot of good for Anthony Yarde. I think he's a likeable guy. I think you could sell Anthony Yarde. I could have him on a boxing show talking about boxing. I think he's quite an engaging kid. But we've lost that. We haven't had that from him. So I think, how do you view Anthony Yarde's career? Is the cup half full or half empty? Well, that's down to you. Depends what you're looking for. I don't think he wins this fight. I think this is a real hard one, purely because, and it's got nothing to do with Anthony Yarde being a bad fighter. I think he's up against a very, very good fighter in David Benavidez. I think he's in against someone that's bigger than him, someone that can punch, someone that believes in their punch, someone that's very proactive, someone that likes to punch in bunches, someone that likes to stand with you. Like we spoke about Fabio Wardley, he's good at standing and trading. I think Benavidez is like that. So the only way I can see Yarde having any success in this one is to punch with Benavidez, much like he did with Beterbiev. But Beterbiev's one of them guys that stands square, pushes you into a corridor, back against the wall, and makes you throw. Even when it's not really the right time to throw, you have to keep him off you. And I think Benavidez is going to do something similar to Yarde in that sort of respects. I think Yarde will have spots, and I think he'll account for himself in spells pretty well. But I think it's going to be a Benavidez night. I think Yarde's gone there this week, and I think he's been quite friendly. They've been really amiable and affable. I'm not quite sure I like that. Um, Something in the back of my mind, I don't know how you all see it. I don't know how the guys in the chat see it, but Yard weighed in at 173.9, so he's over a pound under. Now, in the old days, if you had to make 175, you made it for about 20 minutes. You literally walked onto the scales, made 174.9, and you got off the scales and drunk something. If someone comes in over a pound under, that means they might have got the weight wrong and crashed it off. But I looked at him on the scales and he looked pretty good. He didn't look drawn. He didn't look, he didn't look bad for the weight. But we know Yard gasses and he's got a lot of muscle. And in the second half of the fight, he never looks the same fighter as he does in the first half of the fight. So I'm a little bit concerned about the weight. Something in the back of my mind tells me that over a pound under, they might have managed that weight wrong this time around. But I think it's a really hard fight. I think Benavidez is a good fighter. And I think this is a very, very tall order for someone like Anthony Yarde with his CV and the guys he's fought against and the guys he's beaten. I see it as a Benavidez win, and I think you'll get to him somewhere between. I picked 9, but I think anywhere from round 8, I think Yarde's going to find it very, very hard for himself.
Interesting. Yeah, no, a lot of good points made there. There's just playing, just given the possibility of all scenarios to unfold here. The fact that Yard's 3 losses have come as a decision loss to Lyndon Arthur, which he avenged. But Lyndon Arthur's no mug and probably had a higher ceiling for himself if he'd have been fully invested in the sport. Now, this is an assumption I'm making from distance. By the way, I don't know really the ins and outs of Lyndon Arthur's career, but he always seems like he's a talented kid. But there's maybe other factors at play that he hasn't reached his full potential either. But not a bad fighter on his night. And the other fighters he's lost to are massive punchers, Kovalev and Baturbiev, who was in his ascendancy, and at the time nobody could see anybody beating him. One thing's for certain is you're going to have your chin checked by Anthony Yarde because he can punch. So can he land early, Matty, on Benavidez and cause an upset here? Because I don't know what Benavidez's chin is like compared to the other two guys. Because Baturbiev, you could have hit him with a fucking aluminium baseball bat across the head and you weren't going to stop him. He's just built like that, and he had pictograms of certain performance enhancing stuff in his system at different times in his career as well. Do you think Yard this is set for the stage is set for Yard to provide the biggest upset of the night here? Like, is there something in an early Yard stoppage here?
Benavidez went down against Morel, but that was later on. And the problem for Yard is I actually think his best chance against Benavidez would be late because, against Vosdick at 175, he didn't look fantastic, 9th, 10th round on. He got dropped in that 11th round against Morel. So again, like his chance to shine would probably be late in fights, but guess where Anthony Yarde sucks in fights? Late. When he gets there, right? So I think as much as he's a puncher, Benavidez is a really stout customer, and he'll be able to absorb whatever it is, especially early, as long as he doesn't come in dry. And I think making 175 is much easier for Benavidez now. 168 had to be killing him with his size. So I gotta lean Benavidez all day long here. But if Yarde hears the bell for the 10th, the fight probably goes the distance unless he's just completely just battered and bruised at that point in time, and you could basically tip him over.
Yeah, my thoughts on Benavidez is that he's built all wrong for a 75 pounder. He's like a linebacker, isn't he? We spoke about this last week. He has
Yes,
that big back.
he is. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that lactic acid tends to eat you up when you're a fighter and you're kind of have that kind of bodybuilder's physique. But I'm wondering, coming in a pound under, is that like, because Tundi has some unorthodox ploys. His ploy in the
It's a
first
funny
fight
one,
was
Rob. It's a funny
he was
one, mate.
the plan was against Kovalev was to eat jabs until the 9th round, catch him, and then fucking expend yourself, use all your energy button, trying to get him out of there. I wonder if he caught Benavidez early, could he get the job done? Um, and I think Benavidez is hittable as well. I don't think he's a will o' the wisp by any stretch. He has that kind of. He fights. His punches are very short for a guy who has physical attributes that would suggest that he should keep it long. He's an inside fighter. He's a very exciting fighter in himself. He's probably one of the most exciting fighters we have in the sport. Benavidez, robbed of his chance of a passing of the torch moment versus Canelo because that fight could never happen for him. He's up at 75. We're looking to see him do big things and carry the sport forward. But equally, Anthony Yard's a nice guy, and he's got certain level of appeal. He has the
Yeah.
dynamic style. He's exciting. If we could stick one on Benavidez early, it'd be interesting, really, for me to see how both of them respond for that. Can Benavidez, show what all great champions do and get up off the ground and go and turn the fight around, or will
It's
Yard have his
it's a
moment?
big ask though, Rob, isn't it? I mean, when have we ever seen Anthony Yarde stick it on someone early above area level? It's a big ask, mate.
It is a big ask, right? And I get you. And normally, I'd be 100% agreeing with you in that Yard doesn't show anything at elite level where he's able to set the shots up to land a knockout. Because it's not just a case of, there's been a million fellas that can punch. They can't all just go in the ring and beat elite level guys. So the setup for the shot for Yard would be where do I see this coming? But at the same time, Benavidez fights mid distance. His feet are not. He's never up on his toes. He's kind of marching forward all the time. Is there scope for him to walk onto one? Is what I'm saying. Is there jeopardy in this fight for Benavidez, Matty?
Oh, sure. Because if there's one thing that Benavidez does, he makes a mistake, is he gets squared up. So I like, again, I don't know how badly Yard could hurt him, but I could see Benavidez getting caught in the middle of a combination, getting a little bit squared up, and taking one straight down the chute, and just kind of one of them off balance knockdowns. So yeah, I think that's at play. It's just, man, Benavidez is he's a very, very tough fighter, and I mean, like, even that knockdown against Morrell was a nothing knockdown. He just got up and went on along his way. So I yeah, I would not be surprised to see Benavidez touchdown from getting squared up, maybe during an exchange. But God, I think the Yard being 5-1 on this one doesn't make sense to me. I would make him probably, maybe other than Noakes, the weakest opponent on paper for the favorites.
Yeah, it does seem like that. You're right. It's a bizarre thing to say because you kind of think of all these fights, Yard's the weakest one to win this fight, isn't he? But there's something about Yard. I do pick up what Rob's getting at, and if we can get a little bit of Anthony Yard that fought Linden after the second time round, that steps on the gas and goes looking for him and says, you know what, you're in a fight here, son. You're gonna have to work really hard to get through these first 4 rounds. It would be interesting to see what Benavidez does. But if you take your mind back, Rob, to when you was a bit younger, we always knew Nigel Benn had world-class power because Nigel Benn went out to America and beat guys like Iron Barkley. He jumped on him in the first round, had a tear up with him, and so we knew Nigel
He
had
hit him. He
world-class
hit him
power.
3 times on the ground as well. By the way, in that fight,
Yeah, but
That was
let's
we
put some
knew
respect on the blade
Nigel
Barkley's
could get
name.
dirty. We knew he could get dirty. We knew he said, you know what, I'm here to win at any level, at all costs. And we've never quite seen that with Anthony Yard. So, like, I'm with you, Rob. I like what I see with Anthony. I think he's got the hallmarks of someone that could really reach out and do something in boxing, or had done something in boxing, but we've just never seen it.
He's
And
got the punch, but he doesn't have the intangibles.
And the Kovalev one for me was the one that got away. Look, you're right what you say, Robbie. Put Beterbiev to one side because he was the elite of the elite. Truly was one of the greatest I've ever seen. But going to Russia, as tall an ordeal as that was an old faded Kovalev, and you could have got to Kovalev that night. And they had a moment in, I think it was round 8, when they did have it. But it took them 8 rounds to get there, and after the 8th round, they were gassed. So I'm just wondering, maybe it all comes together tomorrow night. But then
That's
again, I'm
that's my
looking,
feeling on it. Like it's like him and Tunde.
yeah.
They
But
have
then
an
you've got this
unorthodox.
But this Benavidez is no mug. He's prime. He's hot. He's ready to go. He wants to kick on. He's still brooding from not getting the Canelo one and taking the baton off him. So
He wants that
This
Bivol
isn't a
fight.
kid
He
on the.
wants that money. Like he
That's
thinks he
it.
can win that fight.
Yeah, he
And
does.
yeah,
And this
But
isn't a kid that's on the turn. This is a kid that's on the up.
it's interesting because just this fight's actually after bringing out more than I thought it would bring out of the panel here. But Yarde and Tunde, they have an unorthodox dynamic between the two of them. But sometimes that like you're talking about that relationship between Bill and Devin Haney. Bill obviously is coming from a pimping background, not a boxing background, but he's turned it around and he's dedicated his life into making his son a fighter. Tunde is not Anthony's biological dad, but they have that kind of father-son relationship.
Rob, I got to
Some
tell you, like, isn't it just fucking crazy considering that Bill Haney was a pimp that Devin Haney uses the lead hand more than the backhand?
well, listen, pimping ain't easy, but it sure is fun. You know that way.
Sorry, I didn't mean I had one of my rare ones there. So
No, no, fair. No, I'm just thinking for both of these guys. Obviously, there's a bit of jeopardy in this fight for Benavidez. We know Yard has the puncher's chance. One reason to maybe play devil's advocate is that Frank Warren, in many ways, reminds me of his American counterpart Bob Arum, in that he could probably survive a nuclear holocaust and he'd still be alive at the end of it, having the
Yeah,
last laugh. He's had the last
correct.
laugh numerous times in his career when people have thought he's backed the wrong horse and they've come good in the end, the likes of Dubois, etc. So maybe that's a possibility. But looking forward for Benavidez, we're assuming he comes through this fight. Matty just mentioned it. The Bivol fights there. Just briefly from both of you, where do you see Benavidez and Bivol if that fight was to be made next? Who would you favour to win that one? Personally, I would think that Bivol. I think Bivol probably won the first Beterbiev fight. I know Des disagrees with me on that one, and that's fine. Sometimes happens like that on the pod. Maybe it should happen more often that we all disagree with each other. But I think Bivol has almost had the perfect career, and I would see him just being able to box his way to a 12-round clinic over Benavidez. Even I don't think that the jeopardy that Benavidez could present to him is more than what Beterbiev was able to give him in those two classic fights that the two of those had. That's my thoughts on it briefly. Des, just quickly to you first on this one. Bivol versus Benavidez down the line. Who wins that one?
Bivol stands Benavidez on his head.
Interesting. Maddie, how about you?
Bivol is going to win 7, 8, 9 rounds. Maybe you lose one or two of them, and he's gonna catch Benavidez squared up, and his feet are gonna look great. And then at some point, Benavidez is going to land one of those short hook combinations that he is so inclined to land that are a whole lot harder than people understand that they are. And after walking Benavidez, as you guys so said, Dimitri Bivol is going to be stopped by David Benavidez in the 10th round.
And you're saying Tate Benavidez will be doing a live stream watch along with a sombrero and a poncho on her.
Ole,
Viva
motherfuckers.
Mexico. Um,
God.
Interesting. So we're just going to quickly come back to the panel here on this while we sum things up. We've no listeners that want to jump on. That's fine. We'll be back on here Sunday night if you want to join us for our sins, covering all this card and the aftermath. But just very quickly again, Bam Rodriguez up first. We're expecting Bam to come through this one.
Yeah.
Give me both of your predictions and method of victory, please, for Bam Rodriguez.
Matty, would you like to go first, mate?
Yeah, I think Bam is going to he just might catch Martinez late, but I think Bam's going to win by a close decision where he has to win the majority of the last 4 rounds to do it.
And then to Abdullah Mason versus Sam Noakes. Matty, we might as well stay with you for this one. First of all, what's your prediction and method of victory for these?
Mason by decapitation.
Desmond.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think Bam's trap setting and Martinez's lack of pop will get him stopped in the last third. I think Abdullah Mason, being a southpaw, stepping across, whipping uppercuts, I think he stops Sam because Sam goes into a shell, and I think that's a late stoppage as well.
Yep, I'd echo that on the first two predictions. My favorite fight of the night, Brian Norman Jr. versus Devin Debo Haney. Matty, method of victory and winner in this one for you.
Norman either by knockout or in the Garcia fashion where he scores a couple of knockdowns along the way.
And Des.
I'm agreeing with Matty. I think Brian Norman is too strong, too rigid, technically sound, doesn't give nothing away, and I think he breaks Devon's heart. And I think the last third of this fight will be really interesting to see where Devon Haney goes in boxing after this one. I think Norman wins, and maybe a 10th round stoppage.
All right, I'm still torn on this one. I'm going to go for Devin Haney victory. I'm not victory method of victory. I'm not sure. Obviously, as I said, I'm rooting for Norman. I hope he can do it. But sometimes in boxing, almost certainly we're not going to get all the results that we want here. But we could get all the results right. But I'm going to go. Devin Haney is going to win that one. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
not sure how. And then on to the main event. I'll give my thoughts quickly on it. I think Yard's in with a shot. I think of all the bites of the cherry that he had, this would be a true redemption story and a new star for British boxing if he could somehow pull this off. Having said that, common sense would think that Benavidez would be able to take him to deep waters and drown him just off aerobic capacity, off of work rate, off of punch selection, off of just volume punching and how Yard would cope with that. So I'm going to go Benavidez myself. Matty, method of victory and winner for this one.
Benavidez an 8.
And Des, finally, before we wrap it up.
If we ever get a quiet week, we should talk about British fighters' biggest wins abroad. And Ken Buchanan against Ishmael Laguna stands alone, the greatest win abroad by any Brit. Uh, Lloyd Hannigan, Don Curry was a
I'm going
brilliant
to say
win, a
that one, yeah.
phenomenal win, a phenomenal win. Stracy and Napoli's in the ball ring.
Joe
And then
Calzaghe and Bernard Hopkins in Vegas.
yeah,
Big
Hopkins.
balls.
And
Big balls.
don't underestimate what David Hay had to do getting off the floor to beat Mormek in Paris. And it never gets spoken about, but it wasn't quite done. He still had life in him. Danny Williams beating Mike Tyson, which got him the Vitaly Klitschko shot. And if Yard can beat Benavidez, it goes in that company. This truly would be one of the greatest results of a British fighter on the road. But you ask me about a prediction, I've always thought Benavidez is a top fighter that goes to the very top. I thought he was ducked by Canelo. I think he gives Bivol a good fight, although he gets stood on his head. I think he beats a lot of fighters at super middle to light heavy. He could even go up to cruiser. He's got the body for it. And I think he stops Yarde in round 9.
All right, well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from the Boxing Asylum, our pre-fight predictions, post-weigh-in for a Night of Champions tomorrow night in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. We'll be back here again Sunday at the same bad time, same bad channel. All the listeners are welcome to come on and give their, not all of you, some of you are total degenerates and can't be let out in public, but the respectable ones amongst you are welcome to join us on Sunday night and give your opinions on the show. Very quickly on Riyadh, just before we get out of here, it's been muted today that Canelo wants the rematch with Bud Crawford. I'm sure he had a rematch clause in his contract. It seems like he's activated it. You don't fancy another trip to Vegas, Matty, to see
I
your favorite in
know.
action?
No, I wanted to see Bud chasing those belts at middleweight. I thought he could 1-2 that one and seal that hole in his ascent up the weights, and that would have been just an incredible feather in his cap. At this point in time, another win over Canelo doesn't have the same effect on his career and his career resume as I think even just a win against Ali Mahanala would.
Yeah, no, fair. Look, to me, there was a natural conclusion in the fight. I don't think we need to see it again. I would rather see Bud go back down and take the 160 title, or just Bud not fight again, and we just, have the
And Rob,
exclamation point on a great career.
Robbie, I think we've got to stop this automatic rematch crap in boxing. It holds the sport up. We're not interested. It was a sound shutout. There's nothing to see in a return. It's a waste of time.
Well, the judges,
Move
two of
on.
them had it 115, 113. All Canelo had to do was win that last round, and it was a fucking draw, and everyone would be screaming for a rematch. That's the problem. Why we're even in this situation. If they would have scored it 117, 111, or 116, 112 at worst, like the rest
Which
of the
they should have done.
fucking world.
Which they should have done. Yeah.
Well, I think if you're Canelo, when you command such currency, you can put in for the trilogy if you want to when you're signing the paperwork. Like, especially if it's on a Netflix show, he's getting a rematch clause. Like, so look at we wait and see. It's been mooted today that that fight's next. That's the kind of shit I don't want to see from Riyadh season. The same as last week. That's the turkey. Listen, if you're going to hire me, baby, I'm available at a very low price compared to what you're used to paying, and surely we can get things done better than this. But tomorrow night is an example of some of the best things
It's a
that
great show, yeah.
Riyadh
Great
has
show.
given us, yeah, since involvement. So we have a stacked card. We have plenty of undefeated fighters. We have fellas in their prime and fellas who are chasing not just greatness in the current era, but legacy greatness as well. And we hope that tomorrow night delivers in terms of an action-packed night, and we get some great moments and great fights. Hopefully, it's not controversial, and we don't get too many controversial decisions where we have to spend Sunday night talking about things that are wrong with the sport, and we get an action-packed night of
Oh,
fights that we can enjoy with you guys again on Sunday. But listen, we live in
aren't
hope.
you the optimist?
Yeah.
What a turn.
Yeah. We live in hope. But anyway, look, thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Let's have a quick rundown of who was in the chat. We had the likes of City Bray, Triple C 408, Roy, John, um, whoever the fuck was in here, all the usuals, Jimmy Yappy and the boys, and everybody else, Ryan Deal, who normally contribute in the comments. We'll see you all again on Sunday night. Boxing Asylum lives on.